Have you ever thought that a dream can be more than just a dream? Seeing real events and talking to real people. I was thinking, the reason for this is a few strange dreams, which, in fact, I want to tell you about. In short, several times I went to bed in one place and woke up in another, although each such jump did not last very long. For the first time, everything was very fast and uninteresting. I went to bed at a party, dozed off, and suddenly realized that I was lying in my bed at home, in surprise. I jumped up on the bed and began to look around the room, but nothing unusual was found. An ordinary room, I decided. They say, well, I dreamed that I came to visit and went to bed there. And then, yes, I woke up there on a visit where it should have been. Of course, it can be said that it was all just a realistic dream. I then decided that, although I could not fall asleep that evening for a long time, only some unpleasant feeling remained inside, as if I knew that I was actually deceiving myself. The second case was much more interesting. It happened about 6 months ago. That day I got up very early and wandered all morning on business. Somewhere in the afternoon I returned home terribly tired and decided to lie down to take a nap. Very quickly I fell into a deep sleep. Suddenly I started to have a lucid dream. LD. Here it is necessary to make a remark that I am not fond of LD and do not seek to specifically call them. Nevertheless, for some reason, LD is very fond of me and often dream without any invitation. So I'm not bad. I orient myself in them. Well, since I started to dream of LD, then I need to get some pleasure from it. Those who engage in such dreams probably know that they would not destroy the dream. The idea that this is a dream must be kept on the very border of consciousness, on the one hand, so that the brain does not start to get crazy from what is happening and wake you up, and on the other hand, so as not to forget that this is a dream and not slide into an ordinary unconscious and uncontrolled dream. As I said, LD visit me quite often, and in time I somehow naturally learned this art of balance. Well, so I dreamed that I was walking around someone's apartment, quite cozy. It was unusual that I looked at it in distorted colors and perspective, as if looking through a lens. For some reason I came up with a comparison with the presentation incorrectly encoded signal to the TV's video output. It was the first time this had happened to me, and I balanced myself curiously, observing the dream and exploring the apartment. Such a distorted picture lasted for several more minutes, and then suddenly there was a sharp adjustment and I was thrown out of sleep, and I ended up in that very apartment. To say I was scared is an understatement, and I immediately checked by all known methods that this was not a dream, looked at my hands, tried to count in my mind and all that. He began to look around for books, reliable text, I was told, but it seemed that the occupant of this apartment did not much like reading. At least there were no books in the room where I was standing, and the wall was filled with all sorts of knickknacks and junk. I went to the next room. It was already clear to me that this was not a dream, and somehow I ended up locked in someone else's apartment. The most logical explanation was the option that I was drugged with some kind of dope while I was sleeping, kidnapped and brought here. I'm just wondering who needs me. My relatives are not rich. I am not involved in any crime. Suddenly I felt bad and sharply darkened in my eyes. My head began to spin. Or rather, it would be better to say that they put my head in the included centrifuge of the washing machine. And this is not an exaggeration. I mean literally. There was a feeling as if I was emerging from a great depth through the water column, and I opened my eyes at home. Of course, and this time I finally convinced myself that it was just a realistic dream. But nevertheless, after this incident, I often began to think about how it would be possible to prove that this was not a dream. If this happened again, I couldn't take anything from there. It was understandable for some reason intuitively. There were two global ways. First, you can try to somehow interact with the outside world. Secondly, you can get some information that is impossible to get in a dream. The first method is more significant, but it has a lot of drawbacks. For example, it immediately occurred to me to go online and create a topic on the forum or write a message to myself in contact. But let's say there was no computer in the apartment where I was. And even if I had, then in the 30 seconds that I had, I could not figure out someone else's computer, get on the internet and do something meaningful. After some thought, I decided that it is much easier and more reliable to use a regular phone. Just call yourself on your cell phone, almost a win-win option. Although even here I was tormented by doubts. Suddenly I moved not only in space, but also in time, and for example, I will call myself in the distant past. After that, I worried for a long time, remembering all the missed calls from unknown numbers for many years. The second way to get information was much more attractive, to take at least a view from the window. It takes literally a second to remember it, unlike using the internet or phone. And if you manage to find this place in reality, then this will be unequivocal proof. However, how to do it in practice? The place that the windows of the apartment where I had already visited. I remembered well, but how to find it? I don't even know my small town well enough to be 100% sure that the place I saw is somewhere in it. What can we say about other cities now, actually, about the third? Last case, it happened a month and a half ago. After him, I was convinced with some disappointment that all the events that I described earlier were just with us. At least that's what I thought until today. I haven't mentioned yet that I live with a girlfriend. We moved out very recently. Sometimes, once every couple of weeks, she goes home to her mother, and I am left alone. Like in the good old days. That is what happened that day. On Friday, she went home after work, and I sat alone at the computer until late at night. Then went to bed. I woke up this morning to the sound of the door opening. My girlfriend came in. We said hello to each other, and she went to the kitchen to unpack the bags of food. Sleepy, I crawled out of bed and joined her in the kitchen. Put the kettle on and sat down to chat about how the day went yesterday and everything else. However, something was bothering me. The fact is that at night I always close the doors with a chain. And I especially remember how I did it yesterday. So how did she get in? I kind of casually asked if the chain was closed. To which the girl replied in surprise that no. I nodded, but one explanation was already spinning in my head. I don't know, maybe this is a sign of schizophrenia. But the first thing I thought then was that it was all a dream. And I went to bed not here yesterday. The second thing that popped into my head was my old test plan. I went to the gym, but quickly realized that I didn't know where my phone was. I called out to my girlfriend, asking if she had seen him. She flew into the hall, gave her phone and began to jokingly ask if I was going to call my mistress. There were long beeps. I began to spin around, listening for my phone to vibrate somewhere, feeling like a complete idiot. Suddenly the phone was picked up on the other end. A cheerful voice said something like, "Hello, my love, how are you?" I froze in place and then quickly blurted out, "Hello, it's me, I'm calling you from a dream." As we agreed, there was an astonished silence at the other end, and that's it. That's the last thing I remember. And of course, I woke up at home. The door was chain locked from the inside. There were no new calls on the phone. I called my girlfriend, and she said that she was just going back and would be somewhere in the afternoon. It looks like it was all just a dream, no evidence. The direct verification experiment failed. As I said, a month and a half has passed since then. This week my girlfriend once again went to her parents'. This time I also gathered to visit my friend, who had already called me to him for a long time. He lives quite far away, so I had to go to him with an overnight stay. However, this is not a problem for him, since he lives alone in a spacious Copic piece, which he inherited. We walked around the city and drank some beer in the evening. The next day, I was already going home and walking to the bus station when the phone rang. I pulled it out of my pocket and saw that it was my girlfriend calling. She must have returned before me and is wondering when I will arrive. I picked up the phone, greeted her, and heard the phrase, "Hello, it's me, calling you from a dream," as we agreed. But what could be said here in principle? I instantly remembered my old dream in detail. He remembered absolutely everything that happened before him. There was a click on the other end and short beeps went off. Although, even if the phone hadn't been hung up, I still wouldn't have been able to get a word out of myself. I stood in that place for about an hour, according to my inner feelings, not knowing what to do. In the end, after walking around the street for a bit, I nevertheless decided that I would not return home today. I didn't call back either, not because I was afraid of talking to myself, but just so as not to scare my girlfriend. And in general, for some reason I don't want to tell her all this yet. In general, after wandering the streets, I decided to return to my friend, told him I missed the bus. He mumbled some apologies and asked permission to stay one more night. He didn't seem to believe it too much, but he didn't object. Probably thought I had a fight with my girlfriend or something. We sat and chatted a little, just like yesterday, but for some reason the conversation didn't go well this time. About 2 o'clock he said that he had to get up early for work tomorrow and went to his bed. And I was left alone with a laptop and with you, and I have not yet decided what to do tomorrow.